The Defiance. The Dromeri Empire's warships hung in orbit around Earth like a noose of starlight, their obsidian hulls absorbing the sun's rays rather than reflecting them. Humanity had fought bravely for 3 years since first contact, but the brutal reality of interstellar warfare had slowly crushed their resistance. Now, the Empire's ultimatum echoed through every communication channel on the planet. Surrender within 24 hours or face extinction. In the underground command center beneath what remained of Geneva, General Isaac Chen stared at the holographic display of Earth's remaining defensive assets. The room was silent save for the soft hum of life support systems and the occasional ping of status updates. 24 haggard officers stood around the table, their faces illuminated by the blue glow of the projection. "We're down to 17 combat-capable vessels," Chen said, his voice steady despite the desperation of their situation. "Most are damaged beyond effective fighting capacity." Admiral Lakshmi Patel, her right arm ending in a prosthetic that bore the scars of their last major engagement, gestured to a single blinking dot at the edge of the display. Except for the Defiant. All eyes turned to the lone vessel stationed at Titan Base, Saturn's largest moon. The Defiant was humanity's final secret, an experimental warship built using reverse-engineered Dromeri technology, combined with theoretical physics that even the Empire hadn't mastered. "One ship against an armada," someone muttered. "One ship is all we have left," Chen replied. "And perhaps all we need." Captain Maya Voss stood on the bridge of the Defiant, her steel-gray eyes fixed on the tactical display. At 38, she had survived more battles against the Dromeri than anyone else in the fleet. Burn scars traced patterns up the left side of her neck, disappearing into her close-cropped black hair. Souvenirs from the Battle of Mars, where she'd lost her previous command, but gained a reputation for pulling off the impossible. "Final systems check complete," reported Commander Elias Okafor, her executive officer. His fingers danced over the neural interface built into his station. "Quantum drive is nominal. Gravity lance charged to 87% capacity. Shield harmonics calibrated." Maya nodded, feeling the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. The Defiant represented 3 years of desperate innovation, a vessel designed with a single purpose: to strike where the Dromeri believed themselves invulnerable. "All hands, battle stations," she ordered, her voice calm despite the thundering of her heart. "Initiate departure sequence." The Defiant slicked free of Titan's docking clamps, its hull gleaming with the dull iridescence of metamaterials designed to confound Dromeri sensors. Unlike the bulky battleships of Earth's conventional fleet, the Defiant was sleek and predatory, built for speed and stealth rather than overwhelming firepower. In the science bay, Dr. Sanjay Mehta monitored the experimental quantum core that powered the vessel. The heart of the Defiant's capabilities was based on his theories about higher dimensional energy states, concepts that had earned him ridicule from the scientific community before the war. "Core stability at 99.8%, he reported through the comm. "We're ready for the jump, Captain." Maya took a deep breath. Their mission was simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution: bypass the Dromeri fleet surrounding Earth, make a quantum jump directly to the heart of the Empire, and strike at their central command structure. They would be alone, outgunned, with no possibility of rescue. "Lieutenant Kim, plot our exit vector," Maya ordered. "Stay within Saturn's radiation shadow until we clear the orbital plane." "Aye, Captain," Kim responded, her hands moving with practiced precision across her controls. The youngest officer on the bridge at 25, she had been a commercial pilot before the war. Now she was responsible for navigating what might be humanity's final mission. The Defiant accelerated, using Saturn's bulk to mask its departure from Dromeri long-range sensors. The massive gas giant had become humanity's last sanctuary, its radiation belts and complex moon system providing hiding places for the remnants of Earth's forces. "Captain, incoming transmission from command," announced Communications Officer Pavel Volkov. "General Chen requesting final confirmation." Maya activated the secure channel. Chen's weathered face appeared on the main view screen, his expression grave. "Captain Voss, you are cleared for Operation Spearhead," he said formally, though they both knew the words were a mere formality. "You understand that once you depart, Earth will have no remaining strategic reserve. The fate of our species rests with you and your crew." "I understand, sir," Maya replied. "We won't fail." Chen's expression softened momentarily. "The Dromeri believe us beaten, Captain. Show them how dangerous cornered humans can be." He straightened, offering a crisp salute. "Godspeed, Defiant." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Maya looked around at her crew, 42 men and women representing the best that humanity had to offer. Some were veterans like her, while others were brilliant civilians pressed into service by the exigencies of war. All had volunteered for what was likely a one-way mission. "Exiting Saturn's shadow in 30 seconds, Kim announced. Maya settled into her command chair. "Prepare for quantum jump. Target coordinates. Dromera Prime." The Defiant emerged from Saturn's protective embrace, its engines flaring as it accelerated to jump velocity. For a brief moment, it was visible to the distant Dromeri sensors orbiting Earth. In the Empire's flagship, High Commander Vextar noted the sudden energy signature with surprise. A human vessel. This far out in their system. The towering alien's translucent skin pulsed with bioluminescent patterns indicating confusion. "Where has it been hiding?" "Unknown, High Commander," responded his sensor officer. "Configuration does not match any known human warship. It appears to be preparing for faster-than-light travel." Vextar's inner membranes flickered in amusement. "Fleeing, no doubt. Let them run. It changes nothing." He turned back to the holographic display showing Earth's continents. "Continue countdown to the cleansing." On the Defiant, Dr. Meta's voice came through with urgency. "Captain, the quantum core is reaching optimal alignment. Jump window opens in 10 seconds. "They've spotted us," Okafor reported, monitoring the Dromeri communications they'd managed to decrypt. "No pursuit vessels launching yet. They don't consider us a threat." Maya's lips curved in a grim smile. "Their mistake. Engage quantum drive." Unlike conventional faster-than-light travel, which followed the contours of space-time, the Defiant's experimental drive created a temporary quantum tunnel between 2 points, a technology the Dromeri had theorized but never successfully implemented. The ship shuddered as reality itself seemed to fold around it. For a moment that stretched into infinity, the Defiant existed everywhere and nowhere, the boundary between here and there becoming meaningless. Then, with a flash of exotic particles that temporarily blinded sensors for light years around, the ship tore back into normal space. "Jump complete," Kim announced, her voice shaking slightly. "Position verified. We're in the Dromeri home system." Through the view screen, the crew could see the sprawling central world of the Empire. A massive ringed planet surrounded by artificial structures that dwarfed Earth's most ambitious space stations. Hundreds of warships moved in precise formations around the planet, a display of military might meant to intimidate any who dared approach. "Stealth systems engaged," Okafor reported. "No indication that we've been detected yet." Maya studied the tactical display, noting the patterns of the Dromeri fleet. The Empire had grown complacent in its centuries of unchallenged dominance. Their defense grid had gaps, small ones, but enough for a ship like the Defiant to exploit. "Take us in, Lieutenant Kim," Maya ordered. "Course bearing 045 Mark 12. Keep us within the shadow of their orbital shipyards." As the Defiant slipped closer to the heart of enemy territory, Maya accessed the classified files containing their mission parameters. The Dromeri Empire operated from a centralized command structure housed in an orbital fortress called the Nexus. Intelligence gathered from captured data cores suggested that destroying this facility would throw the entire Empire into disarray, potentially giving Earth precious time to rebuild its defenses. What the files didn't say, what only Maya and a handful of others knew, was that the Defiant carried more than conventional weapons. Hidden within its quantum core was a device capable of creating a localized collapse of space-time itself, a weapon of last resort to be used only if all else failed. Multiple contacts at bearing 330 warned Tactical Officer Weijong. Dromeri Cruiser Squadron on routine patrol. Their course will intersect with ours in approximately 3 minutes. Maya studied the approaching vessels. Each Dromeri cruiser outmassed the Defiant by a factor of 10 and carried enough firepower to reduce a small moon to rubble. Direct confrontation would be suicide. Adjust course, Lieutenant. Take us through the debris field at coordinates 227 Mark 83. Kim looked up in surprise. Captain, that's the remains of their old defense platform. The radiation levels there are extreme. And it's the last place they'll look for us, Maya replied. Our shields can handle the radiation better than theirs. Execute the course change. The Defiant veered toward a sprawling field of twisted metal and crystalline structures, the remnants of an ancient battle that had occurred centuries before humans had even developed space travel. Radiation from damaged power cores made the area a navigational hazard that the Dromeri carefully avoided. As they entered the debris field, proximity alarms blared. Kim's hands moved with incredible precision, guiding the ship through gaps that seemed impossibly narrow. Dromeri Squadron is changing course, Jean reported. They're not following us in. A collective sigh of relief passed through the bridge crew, but Maya remained tense. They had avoided the first obstacle, but the heart of the Empire lay ahead, protected by defenses far more formidable than a single patrol squadron. Dr. Mehta, status of the gravity lance? Maya asked. Charged and ready, Captain, came the scientist's reply. But remember, we'll only have enough power for 3 shots at maximum effectiveness before the core requires a cooldown cycle. The gravity lance was the Defiant's primary offensive weapon, a directed energy system that could briefly intensify gravitational forces within a targeted area by a factor of thousands. Against conventional shields, it was devastatingly effective, compressing protected areas until the shield generators overloaded. As the Defiant emerged from the debris field, the Nexus came into view, a massive 12-pointed structure orbiting at the Lagrange point between the Dromeri homeworld and its largest moon. Energy patterns rippled across its surface, indicating shield strengths far beyond anything humanity had previously encountered. Multiple defense platforms detected, John reported, his voice tightening. They're actively scanning this sector. They're looking for us, Okafor said quietly. Word of our jump must have reached them. Maya studied the tactical display, noting the patrol patterns of the defense platforms. The Dromeri were methodical to a fault, their search patterns predictable to someone who had studied their tactics long enough. There, she said, pointing to a sector near the planet's northern pole. Their sensor coverage is weakest there due to interference from the magnetosphere. We'll make our approach from that vector. As Kim adjusted their course, a priority alert sounded from the communication station. Captain, I'm intercepting coded transmissions between the Nexus and the fleet near Earth, Volkov reported, his expression grim as he decoded the message. They're ordering the commencement of planetary bombardment. The Dromeri fleet is preparing to attack Earth ahead of schedule. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The ultimatum had been a ruse. The Empire had never intended to wait for Earth's surrender. Time to bombardment, Maya asked, her voice tight. Based on transmission timestamps, less than 2 hours, Volkov replied. Maya's hands gripped the arms of her command chair. Their timetable had just collapsed from a careful infiltration to a desperate race against extinction. New plan, she announced, her mind racing through alternatives. We're going in hot. Lieutenant Kim, plot a direct course to the Nexus. Maximum speed. Captain, that will expose us to their entire defense grid, Okafor cautioned. We have no choice, Commander, Maya replied. If we don't stop them now, there won't be an Earth to return to. She straightened in her chair, her decision made. All hands, battle stations, weapons room, prepare to bring the gravity lance online. We're taking the fight directly to the heart of the Empire. The Defiant's engines flared to life, abandoning stealth for speed as it raced toward the center of Dromeri power. On the main view screen, alert indicators blossomed as enemy sensors locked onto their position. Multiple vessels converging on our position, John reported. Weapons charging. Maya watched as the first volley of Dromeri energy weapons lanced toward them, a storm of destruction that no human ship had ever survived. Evasive maneuvers, she ordered calmly, and return fire. The battle for humanity's survival had begun. The reckoning. Energy beams tore through the void as the Defiant wove between them, performing maneuvers that would have torn any standard human vessel apart. The inertial dampeners strained to their limits, causing the deck to shudder beneath the crew's feet. 3 Dromeri destroyers on intercept course, John called out, his voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. Weapons lock imminent. Deploy countermeasures, Maya ordered. Prepare gravity lance for targeted strike. The Defiant released a cloud of quantum particles that temporarily distorted the Dromeri targeting systems. In that moment of confusion, Maya gave the command. Fire gravity lance. Target the lead destroyer's propulsion systems. A pulse of concentrated gravitational force erupted from the Defiant's bow, invisible to the naked eye, but devastating in its effects. The beam struck the approaching destroyer, causing localized gravity to increase 1,000-fold. Metal screamed as it compressed under forces it was never designed to withstand. The Dromeri vessel's aft section imploded, sending the ship into an uncontrollable spin. Direct hit, John confirmed. Enemy vessel disabled. Maya allowed herself no satisfaction at the small victory. Dozens more Dromeri ships were converging on their position, and the Nexus itself remained protected behind layers of defenses that would make Earth's most fortified installations seem like paper walls. Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the Nexus, reported Science Officer Lion Song. Her brow furrowed as she studied her console. There's a massive power buildup occurring in its central hub. The planetary bombardment order, Maya realized. They're channeling energy to their long-range weapon platforms near Earth. The Dromeri Empire's most terrifying capability was its ability to project devastating energy across interstellar distances through precisely aligned quantum relays. The same theoretical principle that powered the Defiant's drive, weaponized on a scale that humanity could barely comprehend. Distance to the Nexus, Maya asked. 18,000 kilometers. Kim replied. At current speed, intercept in 7 minutes. Too long, Maya muttered. She tapped her console, bringing up the ship's structural schematic. Dr. Mehta, I need options. Can we execute another quantum jump to close the distance? The scientist's voice came through with obvious concern. The drive needs at least 30 minutes to recalibrate after our last jump, Captain. Attempting another jump prematurely could tear the ship apart. What if we don't care about maintaining structural integrity after the jump? Maya pressed. Just get us there in one piece, even if it's the last thing the drive does. A tense silence followed before Mehta responded. That might be possible. I can override the safety protocols, but it would be a one-way trip. The quantum core would be irreparably damaged. Do it, Maya ordered without hesitation. Program the jump to bring us within 1,000 kilometers of the Nexus. As Mehta worked to reconfigure the quantum drive, the Defiant continued its desperate evasion of the Dromeri fleet. 2 more enemy vessels closed from the port side, their weapons ports glowing with imminent discharge. Incoming fire, John warned. Hard to starboard, Maya commanded. Return fire, all available weapons. The Defiant rolled, narrowly avoiding the brunt of the Dromeri attack. Its conventional weaponry, high-energy plasma cannons adapted from Dromeri technology, lashed out in response, scoring hits against the pursuing vessel's shields. Enemy shields holding, John reported grimly. Our conventional weapons aren't making a dent. Maya had expected as much. The Defiant wasn't designed to outgun Dromeri warships in a conventional firefight. Its strength lay in the gravity lance and the quantum drive, both technologies that pushed the boundaries of known physics. Dr. Meta, status on the jump, she demanded. Ready, Captain, he responded, his voice tight with tension. But I must emphasize the extreme risk. There's a 43% chance the ship will break apart during transit. Noted, Maya said. Stand by to execute on my mark. Before she could give the order, Okafor interrupted. Captain, incoming transmission, from the Nexus itself. Maya paused, surprised. Put it through. The main view screen flickered, revealing a Dromeri figure unlike any they had encountered before. While most of the aliens' warriors were tall and muscular, with reflective carapaces, this one was smaller, its skin almost translucent, revealing a complex network of bioluminescent veins pulsing beneath the surface. Human vessel. The figure spoke in flawless English, its voice carrying harmonics that seemed designed to unsettle. I am Arkin Zivarith, Supreme Commander of the Dromeri Fleet. Your presence here is unexpected. Maya stood, facing the screen. This is Captain Maya Voss of the Earth vessel Defiant. We know what you're planning, Arkin. The attack on our home planet is a violation of your own stated terms. The Archin's skin rippled with patterns that might have been amusement. Terms. There are no terms between the Dromeri and lesser species, Captain. There is only inevitability. Your planet's resources will serve the Empire, and your species will be remembered only as a footnote in our expansion. We're not here to negotiate, Maya replied coldly. We're here to stop you. A fascinating declaration from a single ship surrounded by our fleet, the Archin said. But I admit to curiosity. How did your vessel make the journey to our home system without detection? Our sensors detected an unusual quantum signature during your arrival. Maya recognized the tactic. The Archin was stalling, keeping her talking while more Dromeri ships converged on their position. But she also realized something else. The aliens' interest in their technology seemed genuine. The Dromeri were advanced, but perhaps the Defiant possessed capabilities they hadn't yet mastered. Lieutenant Kim, what's our current distance from the Nexus? Maya asked without taking her eyes off the screen. 15,000 kilometers and closing slowly, Captain, Kim replied quietly. Too far for a conventional assault, but perhaps close enough for another strategy. Archin, I propose an exchange, Maya said, improvising. I will share details of our quantum drive technology in return for your halting the attack on Earth. The aliens' inner membranes pulsed rapidly, an intriguing offer, but unnecessary. We will simply extract the information from your vessel's remains. You misunderstand, Maya countered. Our drive contains failsafes. If the ship is destroyed, key components will be reduced to their quantum constituents, leaving nothing to study. The lie came easily, born of desperation, however unauthorized to deactivate those safeguards in exchange for Earth's safety. The Archin seemed to consider this, its bioluminescent patterns shifting to a slower rhythm. Your desperation is evident, human. Yet your technology does present certain interests, perhaps. Maya cut the transmission with a gesture. They're trying to trace our systems through the communication link, she explained to her startled crew. Dr. Meta, execute the quantum jump now. The scientist didn't hesitate. Executing emergency jump in 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted around the Defiant once more, the fabric of space-time contorting in ways that set off every warning system on the ship. The vessel shuddered violently, hull plates groaning under dimensional stresses they were never designed to endure. For 3 seconds that felt like an eternity, the Defiant existed in a state of quantum uncertainty. Then, with a thunderous crack that reverberated through the ship's superstructure, they emerged less than 1,000 kilometers from the massive Nexus. Jump complete, Kim announced, her voice strained. All decks reporting severe stress fractures. Hull integrity at 62% and falling. Shields offline, Zhang added grimly. Weapons systems rerouting to emergency power. Maya surveyed the damage reports flooding her console. The Defiant was critically wounded, but they had achieved their objective. Through the view screen, the Nexus loomed huge, its 12 spires radiating from a central hub that pulsed with energy. "Dr. Meta, status of the quantum core?" Maya asked. "Complete failure, Captain," he replied, his voice tinged with both regret and awe. "The containment systems are barely holding. We have perhaps 15 minutes before catastrophic breakdown." Maya nodded grimly. "Then we make those minutes count. Commander Okafor, deploy the infiltration team." Okafor looked up sharply. "Captain, you can't be serious." The original plan called for a stealth approach. We're sitting directly in their defense grid with damaged shields. "Which is why they won't expect a boarding action," Maya countered. "The Nexus is charging its long-range weapons. If we don't stop that process now, Earth dies. We have no time for a conventional attack." After a moment's hesitation, Okafor nodded and activated the shipwide comm. "Infiltration team, report to Launch Bay Alpha. Emergency deployment protocol." Lieutenant Commander Raj Singh, head of the Defiant's small but elite Marine detachment, acknowledged the order. Within 2 minutes, 12 soldiers in advanced combat suits had assembled in the launch bay. Each suit contained reverse-engineered Dromeri technology, combined with human innovations, designed to operate even in hard vacuum. "Your objective is the central control hub," Maya told Singh through the comm. "Disable their targeting systems by any means necessary. The fate of Earth depends on it." Singh's voice was steady. "Understood, Captain. We won't fail." The launch bay doors opened, and the Marines deployed, using compact thruster packs to propel themselves toward the Nexus. The Dromeri, still recovering from the shock of the Defiant's sudden appearance, had not yet redirected their defenses to counter this unexpected tactic. "Captain, multiple enemy vessels breaking orbit," Zhang reported. "ETA to our position. 4 minutes. "And the energy buildup in the Nexus?" Maya asked. "Continuing," Song confirmed grimly. "Based on power signatures, I estimate they'll be able to initiate the attack on Earth within 12 minutes. A race against time, with the stakes impossibly high." Maya watched on the tactical display as Singh's team approached one of the Nexus's maintenance airlocks, a potential vulnerability identified in the intelligence briefings. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual readings from within the Nexus," Song suddenly announced, her voice puzzled. "There are power fluctuations occurring in multiple sectors, inconsistent with normal operations." Before Maya could respond, Communications Officer Volkov straightened in surprise. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from inside the Nexus. It's on an encrypted frequency matching our own protocols." "What?" Maya's shock was mirrored on the faces of her bridge crew. "That's impossible. Put it through." A distorted voice came through the speakers, the transmission breaking up intermittently. "Defiant. This is Vega. Resistance cell. Operating within. Nexus for 6 months. Your arrival. Unexpected but welcome." Maya exchanged stunned glances with Okafor. "This is Captain Voss. Identify yourself fully." The transmission cleared slightly. "Captain Dr. Elena Vega, formerly of the Europa Research Station. I was captured during the Dromeri raid last year. There are 12 of us, human prisoners who formed a resistance cell within the Nexus. We've been sabotaging operations where possible, but never had the means for a decisive strike." "Dr. Vega was reported dead," Okafor murmured, "along with everyone else at Europa Station." "Not dead," the voice replied, having heard him. "The Dromeri took specific personnel alive. Scientists, engineers. They've been using us." "For what purpose?" Maya asked. "Research. They're obsessed with understanding human cognitive processes. Something about our minds frightens them." The transmission crackled. "Captain, the Nexus is preparing to launch an attack on Earth. We've been working to sabotage their systems from within, but we need your help." Maya made a swift decision. "Dr. Vega, we have a Marine team approaching airlock 12 Beta. Can you assist in getting them inside?" Yes, we have limited access to security systems. Stand by. On the tactical display, Singh reported unexpected success. Captain, the airlock is opening. Someone's helping us from inside. Proceed with caution, Commander, Maya warned. Confirm friendly contact before proceeding. As Singh's team made their way into the Nexus, guided by Dr. Vega's resistance cell, the situation outside grew increasingly dire. The Dromeri fleet had reorganized after the Defiant's unexpected jump, and warships were quickly closing on their position. First wave of enemy vessels approaching weapons range, John reported tensely. Without shields, we won't survive concentrated fire. Maya studied the tactical display, her mind racing through options. Bring the gravity lance online. Target the lead vessel's weapon systems. The lance is at 64% charge, John cautioned. Below optimal efficiency. It'll have to do, Maya replied grimly. Fire when ready. The Defiant's primary weapon discharge, the gravitational pulse striking the approaching Dromeri cruiser. Metal twisted and energy conduits ruptured as localized gravity intensified exponentially. The enemy vessel's forward section crumpled inward, its weapons disabled, but the ship itself still operational. Partial success, John reported. Enemy weapons offline, but they're still advancing. 3 more vessels entering firing range. Inside the Nexus, Singh's team had made contact with Dr. Vega's resistance cell. The human scientists, emaciated from months of captivity, but eyes burning with determination, led the Marines through maintenance corridors toward the central control hub. The Archon has accelerated the attack timeline, Vega explained as they moved. Something about your ship's arrival triggered a panic response. They're afraid. Afraid? Of one ship? Singh asked skeptically. Not of the ship, Vega clarified. Of what it represents. The Dromeri have ruled unopposed for millennia. The idea that humans could pierce their defenses, reach their homeworld. It challenges their fundamental belief in their own superiority. The team reached a sealed doorway marked with primary symbols. Control hub is beyond this point, Vega said. Heavily guarded. We've never been able to get close. Singh deployed his team in tactical formation. We'll handle the guards. You focus on the systems. Back on the Defiant, Maya received Singh's status update with grim satisfaction. They were close to their objective, but time was running out. The damaged ship couldn't withstand the approaching Dromeri fleet much longer. Captain, Dr. Mehta's voice came through with urgency. The quantum core destabilization is accelerating. We have 7 minutes maximum before catastrophic failure. Maya exchanged a long look with Okafor, a silent communication between officers who had served together through the darkest days of the war. They both understood what needed to be done. All hands, Maya announced shipwide. Prepare for emergency evacuation. Transfer all remaining power to defensive systems and prepare escape pods. Evacuation. Kim asked in confusion. To where? We're in the heart of enemy territory. The Nexus, Maya explained. If Singh's team succeeds, we'll rendezvous there. If not, she left the implication hanging. Dr. Mehta, can the quantum core destabilization be accelerated manually? The scientist's voice was solemn. Yes, Captain. I can initiate a cascade failure that would release all the core's energy at once. What would be the result? Maya asked, although she already suspected the answer. A localized quantum implosion. Mehta replied. Everything within approximately 3,000 kilometers would be drawn into a temporary singularity before it collapses. Nothing would survive. Maya nodded slowly. Begin preparations for that sequence, but do not initiate without my direct command. Inside the Nexus, Singh's Marines breached the control hub in a precisely coordinated assault. Dromeri guards fell to focused pulse rifle fire, their superior physical strength meaningless against human tactical coordination and the element of surprise. Dr. Vega and her fellow scientists rushed to the control consoles, fingers flying over alien interfaces they had secretly studied for months. The targeting sequence is locked, Vega reported through the comm. We can't stop it entirely, but we can redirect it. Redirect where? Maya asked. The only safe target within range is the Dromeri's primary shipyard in high orbit. Vega responded. It's uninhabited except for automated systems. Do it, Maya ordered without hesitation. As the scientists worked, Singh reported unexpected resistance. Captain, we have multiple Dromeri security teams converging on our position. Elite guards, heavily armed. We'll hold as long as we can, but the transmission dissolved into the sound of intense weapons fire. On the Defiant's bridge, the situation was equally dire. The damaged ship shuddered under the impact of Dromeri weapons, its structural integrity failing by the second. Hull breach on decks 3 through 5, John reported tensely. Emergency force fields failing. Evacuation status, Maya demanded. First wave of pods away, Okafor confirmed. Heading for the Nexus's lower docking rings. Maya made her decision. All remaining crew, abandon ship. Commander Okafor, you have command of the evacuation. Okafor looked at her sharply. Captain, someone needs to stay to initiate the core destabilization. Maya explained quietly. Get our people to the Nexus and link up with Singh's team. If they can hold the control hub, you may be able to send a signal to Earth. Warn them what's coming. Protest flashed in Okafor's eyes, but military discipline prevailed. He snapped a salute. It's been an honor, Captain. As the bridge crew reluctantly abandoned their posts, Maya opened a channel to Dr. Mehta. Status of the core destabilization sequence. Ready for initiation, Captain, the scientist replied. The cascade will begin 30 seconds after activation, giving you minimal time to reach an escape pod. I won't be leaving, Doctor, Maya said calmly. Someone needs to ensure the sequence completes and that the ship remains positioned for maximum effect. A long silence followed. I understand, Captain. It has been a privilege serving with you. Maya watched on the tactical display as the last escape pods launched toward the Nexus. The massive structure continued to pulse with energy, but thanks to Dr. Vega's team, that deadly force would now be directed away from Earth. Through the view screen, Maya could see the Dromeri fleet closing in, dozens of warships moving to surround the crippled Defiant. Their caution was evident. They wanted the ship intact enough to study, unaware of the destruction about to be unleashed. Dr. Mehta, initiate core destabilization, Maya ordered, her voice steadied despite the weight of the moment. Sequence initiated, Captain. 30 seconds to cascade. The resolution. Aboard the Nexus, Commander Elias Okafor felt the station shudder as a shockwave rippled through spacetime. Through a viewport, he witnessed the impossible. A sphere of absolute darkness where the Defiant and the Dromeri fleet had been moments before, which then collapsed into nothingness, leaving only stars. Captain Voss, he whispered, allowing himself one moment of grief before the demands of command reasserted themselves. Around him, the survivors of the Defiant's crew had assembled in a maintenance hub within the Nexus, guided there by members of Dr. Vega's resistance. 37 crew members had made it off the ship, less than he'd hoped but more than he'd feared. Commander, we've established contact with Lieutenant Commander Singh, reported Lieutenant Kim, her eyes red but her voice steady. His team is still holding the control hub, but they're taking heavy casualties. Okafor nodded grimly. What about the weapon that was targeting Earth? Successfully redirected, confirmed Dr. Ahmed Ozul, one of the scientists from Vega's resistance cell. The energy discharge destroyed the orbital shipyards as planned. He hesitated, then added, but the Dromeri homeworld is in chaos. The quantum implosion that destroyed their fleet created a cascading failure in their planetary defense grid. Their entire command structure has been disrupted. Okafor processed this information quickly. Then we have a window of opportunity. We need to secure our position and find a way to communicate with Earth. I might be able to help with that, offered Dr. Vega, entering the chamber. The woman was painfully thin, her face bearing the marks of long captivity, but her eyes burned with fierce intelligence. The Nexus contains communication relays capable of sending quantum-encrypted signals across interstellar distances. It's how they coordinate their empire. Can you access them? Okafor asked. Vega nodded. With Singh's team holding the control hub, yes. But we need to act quickly. The Dromeri will regroup, and when they do, they'll throw everything they have at retaking the Nexus. Okafor turned to Tactical Officer John. What weapons do we have? Just what we brought with us, Zhang replied grimly. Standard sidearms, plus whatever Singh's Marines have left. The escape pod's emergency supplies included some heavier ordnance, but nothing that will hold off a determined Dromeri assault for long. Dr. Ozil cleared his throat. Commander, there may be another option. The Nexus itself has defensive capabilities, automated systems designed to protect against external threats. Can they be reprogrammed to recognize us as authorized personnel? Okafor asked. Theoretically, yes, Vega replied. We've been studying their security protocols for months. With access to the control hub, we could potentially redirect the defensive systems. Okafor made his decision. Dr. Vega, take a team and secure those communications. We need to contact Earth immediately. Dr. Ozil, work on accessing the defensive systems. The rest of you, establish a secure perimeter. We need to hold this position until reinforcements arrive. Reinforcements, sir? Kim questioned. From where? Okafor met her gaze steadily. From Earth. If we can warn them that the Dromeri command structure has been disrupted, they might be able to launch a counteroffensive. He didn't voice the obvious, that such help, if it came at all, would take days to arrive. They needed to survive that long. In the control hub, Singh's Marines fought a desperate holding action. Of the 12 who had initially breached the Nexus, only 7 remained combat effective, and 3 of those were wounded. They had established defensive positions around the central control consoles, using overturned equipment as makeshift barricades. Status report, Singh demanded, applying a pressure bandage to a wound in his left shoulder. South access point secure, reported Corporal Chen, her combat armor scorched from enemy fire. East and west corridors showing increased enemy movement. They're staging for another push. Singh nodded grimly. How's our ammunition? Running low, Chen admitted. 2 more major engagements, maybe 3 if we're conservative. Their conversation was interrupted as the comm unit crackled. Commander Singh, this is Okafor. What's your situation? Tenuous, Commander, Singh replied honestly. We're holding the hub, but the Dromeri are marshalling for another assault. I don't know how long we can maintain position. Help is coming, Okafor assured him. Dr. Vega and a team are en route to your position. They need access to the communication systems. Understood. We'll hold as long as necessary. As Singh signed off, a new barrage of Dromeri weapons fire erupted from the eastern corridor. The aliens had adapted their tactics, using portable shield generators to advance under cover. The Marines returned fire, their pulse rifles cutting through the air with deadly precision, but the Dromeri kept coming. They're pressing harder this time, Chen observed tensely. Something's changed. Singh realized she was right. The Dromeri attacks had been probing, methodical. Now they were attacking with greater urgency, almost desperation. They know something we don't, he muttered. Stay alert. Back in the maintenance hub, Dr. Ozil made a breakthrough. Commander, I've gained partial access to the Nexus's defensive grid, he announced, his fingers dancing across a repurposed Dromeri interface. I can't redirect their internal security forces, but I can activate certain autonomous defense protocols. What kind of protocols? Okafor asked. Emergency containment measures, Ozil explained. In the event of a catastrophic breach, the Nexus is designed to seal off compromised sections. I can trigger those protocols in areas heavy with Dromeri forces, temporarily cutting them off from the control hub. Do it, Okafor ordered without hesitation. Across the massive space station, reinforced bulkheads slammed into place, isolating sections of the nexus from one another. The Dromeri assaulting Sing's position suddenly found their reinforcements cut off, leaving them vulnerable to the Marines' counterattack. "Whatever you just did, Commander, it worked," Sing reported over the comm. "Enemy forces are in disarray. We're pushing them back. Hold your position," Okafor instructed. "Dr. Vega should reach you shortly." As if on cue, Vega and her team arrived at the control hub, escorted by 2 of Okafor's security personnel. The scientist wasted no time, moving directly to the central console where the Dromeri's long-range communication systems were housed. "This is remarkable technology," she murmured as she worked. "They're using quantum entanglement to transmit information instantaneously across vast distances. No wonder they've been able to coordinate their empire so effectively." "Can you use it to contact Earth?" Sing asked, keeping one eye on the sealed corridors that wouldn't remain sealed forever. "Yes," Vega confirmed. "But there's something else here, something unexpected." Her hands paused over the console. "Commander, the Dromeri were preparing to transmit more than just attack orders to their fleet at Earth. There's an entire data package here. It looks like research data." "Research on what?" Sing asked. Vega's expression shifted from concentration to shock. "On us, humans. They've been studying us intensively. Not just our technology, but our biology, our psychology, our social structures." She scrolled through more data. "They're especially interested in our adaptive capabilities, our creativity under pressure." "Why would that matter to them?" Sing wondered. "Because it terrifies them," Vega realized, the pieces falling into place. The Dromeri evolved in a highly stable environment. Their biology, their entire civilization is built on predictability, on rigid hierarchies and fixed responses. Human unpredictability, our ability to innovate rapidly under threat, it's completely outside their evolutionary experience. The implications dawned on Sing. They're not attacking Earth just for resources or territory. "No," Vega agreed grimly. "They're attacking us because they're afraid of what we might become. They see us as an existential threat to their entire way of life." Their conversation was interrupted as one of the sealed bulkheads began to glow red-hot. The Dromeri were cutting through. "We're out of time," Sing declared. "Send your message to Earth, now." Vega turned back to the console, fingers flying across the alien interface. "Establishing quantum link to Earth's remaining defense network. Transmitting data package including Nexus coordinates, Dromeri fleet dispositions, and this research data. They need to understand what we're really dealing with." The bulkhead began to melt along one edge, a white-hot line appearing as the Dromeri cutting tools did their work. "Ready defensive positions," Sing ordered his Marines. "This will be close-quarters combat. Make every shot count." Just as the message to Earth was confirmed sent, the bulkhead had exploded inward. Through the smoke and debris stepped not regular Dromeri soldiers, but something else, larger, more heavily armored figures with modified carapaces and augmented weapon systems grafted directly to their limbs. "Elite Guard," Vega whispered in horror. The Archon's personal protectors. The firefight that erupted was brutal and chaotic. The elite guards advanced with a coordination that bordered on hive mind precision, their augmented weapons cutting through the Marines' makeshift barricades. Sing and his team returned fire, dropping the first wave of attackers, but more kept coming. "Fall back to secondary positions," Sing ordered as their front line began to crumble. "Dr. Vega, get behind the central console." The scientists scrambled for cover as plasma bolts sizzled through the air where they had been standing moments before. The Marines executed a fighting retreat, maintaining disciplined fire even as they gave ground. Through his neural interface with the Nexus's systems, Dr. Ozil monitored the battle from the maintenance hub. "Commander, Sing's position is being overrun," he reported urgently. "The Dromeri have committed their elite forces to retaking the control hub." Okafor made a swift decision. "Can you access the life support systems for that section?" Ozil nodded hesitantly. "Yes, but—" "Cut it," Okafor ordered. Vent the atmosphere from every corridor leading to the control hub except for the hub itself. That will kill any Dromeri in those areas, Ozil cautioned. Exactly, Okafor confirmed grimly. Do it now. The scientist worked quickly, overriding safety protocols and initiating an emergency decompression sequence. Throughout the corridors surrounding the control hub, massive vents opened to the vacuum of space. Dromeri soldiers, caught without vacuum protection, were swept away or died in place, their alien biology unable to cope with the sudden loss of atmosphere. In the control hub, emergency force fields activated, maintaining life support for the human defenders, while chaos erupted among the attacking forces. The elite guards, though better equipped than regular troops, weren't prepared for explosive decompression. Many were swept away. Others clung desperately to fixtures as their augmented systems failed in the vacuum. Now, Singh shouted, recognizing the opportunity. Counterattack while they're vulnerable. The Marines surged forward, targeting the disoriented elite guards with precision fire. Within moments, the tide of battle had turned. The Dromeri who had breached the hub were eliminated, and those outside couldn't approach through the decompressed corridors. Control hub secure, Singh reported to Okafor. For now. Well done, Commander, Okafor responded. What's the status of our communication with Earth? Vega checked the console. Message received and acknowledged. They're mobilizing everything they have left. Commander, they're coming for us. A cheer went up from the exhausted defenders, but Okafor remained cautious. How long until they arrive? Based on the quantum signature of their response, they're preparing to attempt a jump similar to the one that brought the Defiant here, Vega reported, analyzing the data. If they succeed, they could arrive within hours. If they succeed, Okafor emphasized. And if we can hold out that long. Dr. Ozil's voice cut through their momentary celebration. Commander, I'm detecting unusual activity in the Nexus' central core. Energy readings are spiking dramatically. The Archon, Vega realized with sudden dread. He's activating the Nexus' final defense protocol. Explain, Okafor demanded. The Nexus isn't just a command center, Vega explained rapidly. It's also the Dromeri's ultimate weapon of last resort. If faced with defeat, they can initiate a quantum cascade that would destroy not just the Nexus, but everything within several light minutes, including their own homeworld. They would sacrifice their own planet. Okafor asked in disbelief. The Archon would, Vega confirmed grimly. To the Dromeri leadership, the Empire is everything. Individual worlds, even their homeworld, are expendable if it means preserving their dominant position in the galaxy. How do we stop it? Okafor demanded. Vega's expression was grim. The cascade can only be initiated from the central core, deep within the Nexus. We'd need to physically reach it and deactivate the sequence before it passes the critical threshold. How long do we have? Based on these readings, less than 30 minutes. Okafor made his decision instantly. Assemble a strike team. We're going to the core. Within minutes, Okafor had assembled a small but determined force. Himself, Singh, and his 3 least injured Marines, Dr. Vega to navigate the Nexus's complex systems, and Dr. Mehta, who had survived the evacuation of the Defiant and whose expertise in quantum physics might prove crucial. The rest of you will maintain this position, Okafor instructed those remaining behind. If Earth forces arrive before we return, direct them to the central core immediately. The journey through the Nexus was a nightmare of twisted corridors and unexpected resistance. Though Ozil maintained control of life support in many sections, keeping them decompressed to deter Dromeri defenders, some areas had to be traversed that remained fully pressurized. Here, the team encountered pockets of desperate resistance. Dromeri soldiers willing to die to slow the humans' advance. 5 minutes to critical threshold, Vega warned as they fought their way through another checkpoint. We need to move faster. This way, she directed, leading them down a maintenance shaft that bypassed several major corridors. The central core is just ahead. They emerged into a vast spherical chamber, its walls lined with pulsing energy conduits that converged on a central platform. Standing on that platform, surrounded by a shimmering force field, was Archon Zivreth. Humans, the Dromeri leader acknowledged, its voice carrying that same unsettling harmonic quality. Your persistence continues to exceed expectations, a fascinating trait, but ultimately futile. Shut down the cascade sequence, Okafor demanded, his pulse rifle aimed at the Archon, despite the force field. There's no need for further destruction. The alien's skin rippled with what might have been amusement. You misunderstand the situation, Commander. This is not destruction. It is preservation. The Dromeri Empire has stood for 50,000 years. It will not fall to a species that has barely mastered space travel. Your empire is already falling, Okafor countered. Your fleet is destroyed. Earth knows your vulnerabilities now. This is over. Nothing is over while the Dromeri endure, the Archon responded coldly. And we will endure. Our seed ships have already departed for distant sectors, bearing our genetic legacy and collective knowledge. The Empire will rise again, far from the threat your kind represents. 3 minutes to cascade initiation, Vega murmured urgently. Dr. Meta studied the energy flows converging on the central platform. The force field protecting the Archon is tied into the cascade sequence, he observed. If we can disrupt it, we might be able to interrupt the process. How? Singh demanded. Meta pointed to several junction points around the chamber. Those nodes regulate the energy flow. If we could overload them simultaneously, it might create a feedback loop that would collapse the field. You're too late, the Archon declared, seemingly aware of their plan. The sequence has progressed beyond the point of no return. Accept your fate with dignity. Okafor distributed his team quickly. Singh, take your Marines and target those nodes on my mark. Dr. Vega, Dr. Meta, see if you can access any controls that might help us. I'll keep our friend talking. As the team moved into position, Okafor advanced toward the force field, his weapon lowered slightly in a gesture of negotiation. Archon, consider what you're doing. You're sacrificing your own homeworld, billions of your own people. A regrettable necessity, the Archon replied without emotion. The continuation of the Empire supersedes individual concerns. Is that what your people would choose? Okafor pressed. Have you asked them if they're willing to die for your pride? The Archon's skin darkened, a sign of agitation. Their choice is irrelevant. The hierarchy exists to make such decisions. That's what frightens you about humans, isn't it? Okafor realized. Not just our unpredictability, but our independence. The fact that we don't blindly follow hierarchies. That we question, we adapt, we evolve. Your chaos is a disease, the Archon hissed. A contamination that must be contained before it spreads. 2 minutes, Vega warned quietly. Okafor caught Singh's eye. The Marines were in position. Now, he commanded. Singh and his team opened fire on the energy junction nodes, their pulse rifles set to maximum output. Simultaneously, Dr. Meta activated a small device he had been configuring, a modified communication unit that broadcast a disruptive frequency targeting the force field's resonance patterns. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The force field surrounding the Archon flickered, energy coursing wildly as the carefully balanced system destabilized. The Dromeri leader's composure finally broke, its limbs moving frantically over control interfaces as it tried to stabilize the cascade sequence. Dr. Vega, now's your chance, Okafor shouted. The scientist lunged for a control panel near the central platform, her fingers flying over the alien interface with practiced precision, initiating emergency shutdown sequence. The chamber's lighting fluctuated wildly as competing commands battled within the Nexus's systems. The Archon snarled, abandoning its dignity as it frantically worked to maintain the deadly cascade. 1 minute to critical threshold. Vega announced tensely, still working. The system is fighting me. Keep trying. Okafor urged, advancing toward the central platform as the force field continued to destabilize. The Archon, sensing defeat, made a final desperate move. From within its robes, it produced a crystalline device that pulsed with ominous energy. If the cascade fails, this Deadman switch will still trigger a localized reaction, it declared. You will not leave this chamber alive, humans. Singh reacted instantly, shifting his aim from the energy node to the Archon itself. His pulse rifle discharged just as the force field collapsed completely. The energy bolt struck the Dromeri leader's upper torso, causing it to stagger backward. The crystalline device fell from its grasp, clattering onto the platform. Okafor lunged forward, crossing the distance to the central platform in 3 desperate strides. He kicked the device away from the Archon's reaching limbs, sending it spinning across the chamber floor. "Meta," he shouted. The scientist was already moving, scooping up the Deadman switch and examining it with expert eyes. "Simple enough," he declared, deftly manipulating several crystalline components. Deactivated. On the central platform, the Archon had collapsed, its bioluminescent patterns flickering weakly as its life ebbed away. "You cannot understand," it whispered, "what you have done." "We've ensured our survival," Okafor replied simply. "And yours." Cascade sequence terminated, Vega announced with a sigh of relief. "We've done it." A silence fell over the chamber as the reality of their victory sank in. Against impossible odds, a handful of humans had prevented the destruction of not just themselves, but an entire alien civilization. The moment was interrupted by Lieutenant Kim's voice over the comm. "Commander Okafor, do you read?" "Go ahead, Lieutenant." "Sir, we're receiving multiple quantum signatures. Earth vessels incoming." Okafor exchanged glances with his team, a disbelieving smile spreading across his face. "How many?" 17 signatures and counting, sir. They'd deployed everything they had left. The first ships are already engaging remaining Dromeri forces in orbit. Within hours, the Nexus had been secured. Earth vessels, led by the hastily refitted battleship Intrepid, established a defensive perimeter around the station, while engineers worked to fully understand and control its systems. In what had been the Archon's private chambers, now repurposed as a command center, Okafor briefed General Chen and Admiral Patel, who had personally led the relief force. The Defiant's sacrifice wasn't in vain, he concluded his report. Captain Voss did more than just save Earth. She gave us the key to ending this war, and the Dromeri homeworld. Chen asked. In chaos, Okafor reported. With the Archon dead and their command structure in disarray, their rigid hierarchy is collapsing. Some factions are already reaching out, seeking terms. Terms, Patil mused, examining her prosthetic arm thoughtfully. 3 years ago, they came to exterminate us without a second thought. Now they want to negotiate. They underestimated us, Okafor replied simply. A mistake they won't make again. What about this research data Dr. Vega recovered? Chen asked. About why they feared us so much. It's fascinating, actually, Okafor said. According to their studies, humans possess a unique combination of traits. We're hierarchical enough to organize efficiently, but individualistic enough to innovate rapidly. We're aggressive, but also empathetic. We can be ruthlessly pragmatic, yet idealistic enough to sacrifice for abstract principles. In other words, we're a paradox, Patil observed. To the Dromeri mind, yes, Okafor confirmed. Their civilization values consistency, predictability. We're none of those things, and it terrifies them. Chen studied the tactical display showing the Dromeri homeworld and the surrounding system. So where do we go from here? They tried to exterminate us. Many would say we should return the favor. That's not who we are, Okafor said firmly. Captain Voss didn't sacrifice herself, so we could become what we fought against. We have a chance here to build something new, not just peace, but understanding. After a moment's consideration, Chen nodded. Draft terms for their surrender. Fair terms, Let's show them what humanity really stands for. 1 month later, Commander Elias Okafor stood on the observation deck of the renamed Nexus Station, now called Unity. The massive structure had been repurposed as both a diplomatic center and a research facility, where humans and cooperative Dromeri scientists worked to understand each other's technologies and cultures. Dr. Vega joined him at the viewport, looking much healthier after weeks of proper nutrition and medical care. The Dromeri delegation has agreed to the final terms, she reported. Full withdrawal from human space, reparations for damaged colonies, and cooperation on joint scientific ventures. Will they honor it? Okafor wondered. I think so, Vega replied thoughtfully. The collapse of their hierarchical system has led to something interesting, a cultural revolution among their younger generations. They're fascinated by human adaptability. Some are even trying to emulate it. Okafor smiled at the irony. The very thing they feared about us may end up transforming their civilization for the better. That's the thing about fear, Vega observed. Once you face it, you often discover it was unwarranted all along. Through the viewport, they could see the Dromeri homeworld, its rings catching the light of its star. Already, human vessels move freely in orbit alongside Dromeri ships. Not in combat, but in cooperation. What about the Defiance technology? Vega asked. The quantum drive, the gravity lance. Will Earth share those with the Dromeri? Eventually, perhaps, Okafor replied. Trust will take time to build. But the war is over. For now, that's enough. A memorial had been established in the center of Unity Station, a simple holographic display showing the Defiant in flight. Beneath it, a plaque bore the names of those who had not returned, with Captain Maya Voss at the top of the list. As Okafor studied the memorial, he reflected on the journey that had brought them here. One ship, sent on what had seemed like a suicide mission, had changed the course of two civilizations, not through overwhelming force, but through human ingenuity, courage, and the refusal to accept defeat, even when facing impossible odds. They'll remember us now, he murmured, echoing Maya's final words. And as human and Dromeri diplomats gathered to formalize their newfound peace, Okafor knew she had been right. The galaxy would never forget what one human warship had accomplished against an empire.